Hello everyone and welcome to the Kiki London YouTube channel. My name is Amanda. In today's video we're going to be doing a peachy orange gel ombre today using the Kiki London sculpting gels. First up, I thought I would share with you the products we're going to use in the video today. So we're going to be using the Henna-free base coat, two of the Kiki London sculpting gels. We're going to be using Crystal Clear for our base and encapsulating, and then Vanilla Cream for our ombre. Our gel polish colours we're going to be using today are Peach Side, Feelin, Peachy, Just Peachy, can you notice the peach theme here, and then Harvest Festival. So we're also going to finish off with a matte top coat today because I really loved how this set looked matte, so I thought it would be nice to do something a little different and do a matte finish. Now for today's video I'm going to be working on my Red Iguana practice hand, and I'm going to start off by treating these nails as though they are long natural nails. So I'm going to come in and file them. Of course, if you are working on the natural nail you would do all of your prep to begin with, like your cuticle prep, so I will leave a cuticle prep video linked in the description box below, but I'm just going to come in and bring the shape of these nails so that it's a bit nicer and a bit sharper. So I'm just doing this using a 180 grit Kiki London file, so I'm just neatening up those sidewalls. Now if you was going to be applying tips, so if you wanted to extend using tips, you could do this after you have filed the nail. Of course, if you wanted to sculpt, then you would still file the natural nail and then come in and apply your sculpting forms. But for the purposes of today's video, we're going to be treating these as though they're long natural nails. I'm going to come over the top of the surface of the nail and gently buff them. So this would be very similar to how you would etch the natural nail. So when I'm etching the natural nail, I like to be quite gentle. I'll use circular motions, but because we're working on tips, I'm being a bit harsher because I want to make sure I'm removing the shine from these tips so that our gel products stick. Now this would be the same if you had applied tips to extend the nail. You want to make sure you're either using matte tips or you are buffing them to remove the shine. After this, I did wipe over the nails with some alcohol, and at this point if you were working on real nails you would come in and apply your primer. But I'm going to jump straight to applying my base coat, so I'm going to come in and apply a thin coat of the Henna-free base coat. Now you can use any of the Kiki London base coats with the sculpting gels. Personally, I find the colour rubber bases pair absolutely beautifully with it. I do tend to reach for the colour rubber bases, probably most of all as they are one of my absolute favourite products, but I do love them under the sculpting gels because I love how if you come in with a rubber colour base, it's giving the nails an extra layer of strength, but then if they've got a hint of colour, it minimises any imperfections that might already be on the natural nail plate, especially if you're working on long nails as well, where your client's going to have a visible free edge. Coming in with a rubber colour base evens out that colour before you come in and apply your sculpting gel, so it eliminates any unevenness in the colour. Once you have applied your layer of base coat, you're going to want to pop this in to cure for 30 seconds. Now I'm starting off today with a thin base layer of Kiki London's sculpting gel in Crystal Clear. So if you had applied tips, this is going to help even out where your tip meets your natural nail. And then if you were going to sculpt, this is the point where you would come in and sculpt. You would do your base coat first of all, apply your sculpting form, and then come in and sculpt out a thin clear base. If I'm working over the natural nail though, I do still like to put a thin clear base on so that when it comes to doing an infill, if you have done a design that your client might not want the same as again, you can kind of like file back to this thin clear layer, do your infill with clear, and then go in and do a new design, and it makes it a lot easier. When I'm doing designs like I'm doing today, where we're going to be combining a gel polish with the sculpting gels, I also like to make sure I've got that thin clear layer down so our gel polish is effectively sandwiched between 2 layers of sculpting gel. So then this way you know that you're not going to have any chipping issues or any breakdown because that gel polish is sandwiched in between the 2 layers of a builder gel. So I'm just going to apply a thin layer of this. You don't want this base layer to be too thick, especially when you're going to be doing like a nail design like an ombre, because you're going to be coming in and applying more layers of product, so you don't want to start off with a bulky base. So as you can see, I'm kind of doing similar to what I would do with a slip layer. I'd maybe just say it's ever so slightly thicker. But when I'm doing this, I'm making sure that I'm being very careful, making sure the application is nice and neat around that cuticle area. If you do happen to get any product on the skin or cuticles, you want to wipe this off before curing. We're now going to come in and start our ombre look. So I'm starting off with peach side, and I'm applying this at the tip of the nail, taking it down as far down, like not taking it down as far as what you want your ombre to be, because you're going to blend this back. So kind of visualize where you want your blend area to be, and don't take the gel polish down as far as that, because you're then going to come in with your ombre brush and blend that color back. Now the great thing about doing a gel polish ombre sandwiched in the sculpting gels is the sculpting gels leave behind a nice tacky inhibition layer, so the gel polishes blend beautifully into that inhibition layer, so it makes it really easy to blend an ombre out, that color, if that makes sense. So we're going to repeat that step on all 4 of the nails using the different orange shades. So here we have Feelin Peachy. Now don't stress too much how your color looks at this point, or how if your ombre doesn't look perfect, because we're going to come in and do 2 coats anyway. Now the reason I do 2 coats is because I don't want to apply this thick and have curing issues. It's always better to apply your gel polish shades in 2 thin coats rather than 1 thick layer. And 2, it's going to make the color pop when we're creating our milky ombre look over the top. Of course, depending on the ombre look you're doing, this is going to differ, but I wanted to come in today and kind of like soften these colors with the vanilla cream when we're doing the ombre. So I wanted to make sure there was 2 coats of each color, so that it did still pop a little bit. Now with the first coat of color, you really want to make sure you're blending it down, going towards that natural nail bed area and really softening it out. You are going to find that different colors blend easier than others. So on the first nail we used peach side, on the second we've used Feelin Peachy. These are quite lighter shades, so they are a little bit easier to blend. We've then gone in with Just Peachy, which kind of has a little hint of neon to it, so you might want to spend a little bit more time blending this one, because it is a lot more brighter. I was going to say it's a little bit more pigmented, but it's not, it's more brighter. So you just want to spend a little bit more time blending this out, so basically that there isn't a harsh line where your gel polish color ends and your milky area, your milky blend is going to be. So obviously we're blending into a milky base, so that's where it's a bit confusing, because obviously these nails aren't natural nails, so they've got a more white color to them than the natural nail bed would. Now on the little finger I went in with Harvest Fesitval. Now this is a more darker orange compared to the peach shades we've used, so I'm being very careful that I don't pull too much of that color down. I applied a little bit less at the tip of the nail, and I'm wiping off my brush every now and then to remove any excess product, so I don't take too much color down. And then this, now the color is going to be blended down more towards the cuticle area, if that makes sense. So again, if you're doing multiple different color ombres, just bear this kind of thing in mind. Normally if I was doing a set like this, for example, on myself, I would be doing just 1 color, but I wanted to do a mix of peaches and oranges, so you guys can kind of see some different colors that are beautiful for summer. Once you have done that first coat on all of the nails, you're going to pop these into cure for 30 seconds, and then we're going to repeat that step with the second coat. Now when it comes to applying the second coat, don't take this as far down as what you've created your ombre. Apply it roughly the same as what you did on that first coat, because you're going to blend it down with your ombre brush. This is going to help make the color pop at that very tip of the nail, and it's going to make your blend a lot easier as well, because you're able to come in and you don't need to take this second coat down as far, so you're staggering where that blend is going to be, if that makes sense. Again, we're going to repeat this on all 4 of the nails. You want to make sure you're applying this nice and thin. You don't need to come in with a thick amount of gel polish. 2 coats really brings out the pigment in all of the Kiki London shades. Now with your ombre brush, you want to just use the very tip of the brush to begin with to start pulling that color down, gently feathering it, and then I'll kind of use the middle area of the brush, but not going as far up as those stiffer bristles, if I need to really blend that shade a little bit more, which you'll find again, different shades, you're going to have to work with your brush a little bit different to make that blend work for you. Now, whenever you see my brush go out of shot, that's usually because I'm wiping it on a lint-free pad with a little bit of alcohol. And this is because I don't want to pull too much of that colour down. If I feel as though I'm not blending the gel polish, I'm pulling too much colour down, I'll just wipe off some of that excess gel polish on a lint-free pad so that we don't end up ruining that blend area. Now, another thing to bear in mind as well when you are doing different colour gel polish ombres is to always make sure you clean your brush, otherwise you're going to take the previous colour into the next one. And I always like to just clean my brush on, again, a lint-free pad with a little bit of alcohol. You can also run it through some clear gel as well if you feel as though you've got a lot of gel polish build up in the bristles of your brush. So if you run it through some clear gel polish, it's going to pull those colours out. Once we had done that second coat and I'm happy with how the blends are on all of them, I'm going to pop this in and secure for 30 seconds. We're then going to switch to vanilla cream, and this is what we're going to use to create our milky part of the ombre. So I'm going to start off by applying a slip layer of this to the entire nail. Now I'm applying this to the entire nail because I want to create this soft milky look over the orange tips, but I don't want to fully cover them up, if that makes sense. So by applying a slip layer, a thin layer of vanilla cream is going over the entire nail. This is also going to help your builder gel layer move into place. So once I've got that thin layer over the entire nail, I'm picking up a ball of gel. I'm going to place this down just away from the cuticle area and kind of use like a rolling motion and a circular motion to release that product from my brush, and the slip layer is going to help pull that from the brush onto the nail. You want to try and keep your brush in contact with that ball of gel until you need to either pick up more gel or you are finished with the nail. So I'm just using little circular and nudgy motions to push this up towards the cuticle area and sidewalls, and then we're going to start pulling this bead of gel down. Now I'm leaving majority of this gel in that back third of the nail, and this is for a couple of reasons. So we're wanting to cover that natural nail bed area and start creating our ombre. So of course we only want to move some of the product down because we don't want to take this whole ball of gel down towards the tip of the nail. I'm also wanting to start building up the strength and structure of the nail, so I'm wanting to build up that apex, and I want this color to come through, so it's easier to build up the apex with the color rather than just do a really thin layer and then have to build your entire apex up with the clear. And then I'm gently just going to feather this down just so that there's a nice seamless ombre between the vanilla cream and the peach side gel polish. I'm then going to switch to using my Kiki London stripe liner brush, and I'm going to use this to neaten up the sidewall areas and make sure we have enough product there, make sure those sidewalls are covered so that there's not a gap in our ombre. And then I'm also going to use this to just gently feather down the product a little bit more to perfect that blend and get it looking as seamless as possible. And I think this one was my favorite color combination of all the nails. I feel as though vanilla cream and peach side pair up beautifully for a summer ombre. So we're going to go through and do that again. So a thin slip layer over the entire nail. If you feel as though you're, like, say for example, if you were using a lighter color, or in this case I just felt as though vanilla cream was covering up that orange a little bit too much, you can wipe some of that excess off. I do go in as well on this nail and I bring the color down a little bit too much, so I show you guys removing some of it as well. So here I had a little hair in my builder gel, so I was just trying to get that out before placing it down onto the nail. So I started off here, I picked up just a slightly too large ball of gel and it just ended up covering that blend a little bit more than I wanted it to, but I left it in the video so I could show you guys how I would correct that. So starting off same as before and placing that ball of gel down just away from the cuticle area, holding the finger downwards and then pushing that builder gel layer up towards the cuticle area to get a nice cuticle application, and then I'm pushing a bit of the gel back to keep it in the back third to build up that apex area, and then we're going to start walking this down towards the tip, or sorry, to the blend area of the nail. And this is where I'm trying to gently thin it out, but I just had a little bit too much product on my brush, so I wiped off my product, pulled some of the gel down, realized how much it had covered up our orange gel polish. So I'm just going to come in with a little bit of alcohol and wipe that off, and just wipe it on to a lint-free pad. I did at this point as well notice a tiny bit of fluff stuck into my builder gel, so I'm just making sure to remove this as well. If you work with gel products, you know how annoying it is when you get either a piece of dust or a little bit of lint or a little bit of fluff, anything. It's like a magnet to the gel. So I just wanted to make sure I removed that before we obviously cured it in. And then again, I'm going in with that striped liner brush, neatening up my sidewalls. You can come in at this point and neaten up your cuticle area as well if you need to, and then just blending that down. Because I'd played around with this ball of gel a little bit more than I should have, I'm just pushing it back down at the cuticle area as well, just so it's nice and neat. Now at this point, you can flip your client's hand around so it's facing you to really help perfect the cuticle area and the blend if needed. I then held the nail upside down for a few seconds to help self level, and then we popped it in to cure for 60 seconds. Off camera, I repeated that exact same steps on the ring and little finger, and we're now going to come in and encapsulate. So you're going to want to encapsulate to build up the rest of your strength and structure, especially if your nail at this point is on the thin side. For example, the tip of our nail is a little bit thin, as we haven't built up any structure really there. We've just put a very thin layer of the vanilla cream down. And you're also going to want to come in to encapsulate to protect that blend area, so that when you come and file, refine and contour that nail, you're not gonna file into the blend and remove that beautiful ombre you've created. So to encapsulate, we're using the crystal clear sculpting gel. I've applied a thin slip layer to the entire nail, making sure it's nice and neat at that cuticle area. Then we're coming in with a small ball of builder gel and placing this down at that cuticle area and just walking it down to the entire nail. At this point, especially when I've done something like an ombre or a nail art design, I'm kind of looking at the nail from all angles, not all areas, all angles, and trying to make sure that I'm applying more gel where it's needed and less where it's not needed. So for example, on an ombre, you've built up your cuticle and apex area with the vanilla cream, so you only want a very thin layer of the clear there. However, you're going to want a slightly thicker layer as you go over that blend area down towards the tip of the nail, so that your structure is complete over the entire surface of the nail. Again, I've held this upside down for 60 seconds just to help everything self-level nicely, and then we've popped that in to cure. I did then repeat this step on all of the nails, and we're now going to go in and file. So before filing, you do want to come in and remove that tacky inhibition layer that's left behind after curing. The sculpting gels do have quite a sort of sticky inhibition layer, so give it a good rub over with some alcohol. And we're then going to go in and file. So I use a combination of the 180 and the 100 grit side of the file, depending on how much work is needed to be done at that filing stage. You want to kind of try and apply your sculpting gel as neat as possible to minimize your finish filing. But I start off by neatening up the sidewalls using the 100 grit side of my file, and then I'm switching to the 180 to go up one sidewall, around that cuticle area, and then over the entire surface of the nail. You want to be really careful when you're filing around the cuticle area, because the skin can be quite delicate. I was going to say it can be quite gentle. You need to be gentle around that cuticle area because the skin is a bit sensitive. And then I like to switch between the 100 and the 180 grit side just to refine the nail. So I'll look at the nail from all angles. If there's any areas that are a little bit bumpy or uneven where I might need to debulk, I'll come in and do this with the 100 grit side of the file. But overall, majority of the time, I'll just stick to the 180 grit side of the file, as the sculpting gel does file effortlessly. I then went over the entire surface of the nail with the Kiki London buffer just to remove any harsh scratches that are left behind from filing. And of course, we repeated this step on all of the nails, and you can see how much sharper and crisp those free edges look, and just how much more refined everything looks. You do then need to make sure to go in and give the nails a good clean. Make sure to remove all of that dust that's left behind from filing. I usually like to do this by spraying my dust brush with a little bit of alcohol, giving it a good brush, and then I'll wipe over the surface of the nails with some alcohol as well. We're then going to come in and top coat, and as I mentioned at the start of the video, I really loved how these looked matte. So I'm going to come in with the Kiki London No Wipe Matte Top Coat. I think ombres matte have to be one of my personal favorite go-to designs to do. So I'm just going to come in and apply a thin coat of this to all of the nails, and then we're going to pop this into Cure. Now the matte top coat goes on glossy, so this does give you an idea of what this set of nails would look like if you would come in and do a glossy top coat. Let me know two things in the comments below. Which was your favorite color tip? So was it Peach Side, Feelin Peachy, Just Peachy, or Harvest Festival? And let me know if you preferred these glossy or matte. Like I said, I absolutely love a matte ombre, especially when they're milky as well. They're just, oh, dreamy. I really wish I'd done this set of nails on myself, but I'd just done my nails the day before. So after curing, this is what they look like, and I absolutely love them. So I really hope you've all enjoyed watching. If you did, please do give today's video a thumbs up, leave us a comment below, and hit that subscription button if you haven't already. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Lots of love. Take care. Bye bye.